So we're now going to push on to another interview. It's going to be David and Danielle talking about the family experience. So David, over to you.
Thanks, Jim, and thanks to the organisers for inviting us to talk to you. Danielle's really kindly agreed to allow me to interview her about her experience as a family, her reflections on how it was as a family to be supported in helping your daughter. I come at this, we both live in the West Midlands, and my daughter was similar age really to yours when she first became ill, and we're talking 17 years ago. And I think the context for me is that at that time we had very, very little support as a family. No one was really that aware of how it was impacting on the whole family, the daughter's brothers and that. So it's interesting for me to understand what's different 17 years on in the West Midlands where we both live in terms of your family's experiences, and I can think how that would be for mine. So I think just first of all, and I also should bear in mind that a few days ago when I came up to talk with Danielle, Danielle was under the impression that we were just talking to 20 to 30 people. And this is the first time that you've done this, and I think it's just important to understand that it's quite a difficult thing to reflect back in front of more than 25 people. So I'm sure you'll take that into account. And Danielle, do you want to just start off by really just giving us a little bit of context about you and your family and how this all came about?
Okay. I've been married for 23 years. We've got two daughters, one who's just turned 21 and my youngest daughter who's 18. They're quite different girls, but they're extremely, extremely close. My eldest one is, I'd say, slightly more academic, slightly more outgoing. My younger one is much quieter, but incredibly artistic and very creative girl. My husband's a single-handed GP, and I've been the practice manager of the practice for over 20 years. I think the most important thing to say really is both the girls, although they're very close, they both experienced extremely different aspects of adolescence and how they grew up within our family.
Okay, so how did things begin to change then?
Nadia, who's my youngest daughter, she went from primary school to an all-girls private secondary school and didn't really settle in terribly well. She had friendship issues, she was sort of lacking in confidence, she never really felt part of the in crowd. I think the girls there were quite, confident young women, even at such an early age. She used to come home, and one of the things she used to do was she'd get out of her school uniform, she'd put it on the landing, and she used to separate school from home. That was a really salient thing that went on. Her self-esteem seemed to plummet quite a lot in secondary school, and it got to the point that even with the help from the teachers in the school, they were trying to, should we move class? She had some input from school counsellors. It just got worse and worse. She was trying to jump out of the car on the way to school. It just never really got better. So in the end, we decided to move her to a smaller school, which was a mixed school. And it didn't get better straight away. She had some input from the school there, but slowly, she was there for about 3 years, things did get better. She sat her GCSEs. She had some friends. They tended to be boys. She was very cautious of making friends with girls. And she settled down, and she did quite well. But, sorry.
And I was just thinking about the sort of professional help that was sort of kicking in at that stage.
Right. Well, at that stage, we used the services of CAMS, and she had a fantastic CPN who she got on really well with. It wasn't instant. It took a while. She was sort of very dubious about how this would go, but they really got a great rapport going. At the same time, her sister moved to university, and that was quite a big shake-up in her life, and her best friend emigrated to another country. So she was starting to become quite lonely. She was staying in her room. But somehow or other, she got through her GCSEs. We didn't put any pressure on her to do A-levels. And being very creative and artistic and a very, very good cook, she decided, with our help and encouragement, to go to college to study professional cookery.
Okay.
So.
But things continued to get more difficult.
Well, they started off okay, but then she found there were friendship issues. She was very quiet. She felt people were already sort of making their friendship groups. They were leaving her out. She just couldn't really settle. But at the same time, there was a paradox going on in that she was, what the tutor said, probably one of the best they've ever had in the college. And as we were getting to the stage where she was missing classes and probably wanting to leave, he was doing absolutely everything to get her to stay, but it really wasn't working. What I did then was I went back to CAMS to see if I could speak to Mike, to see if he could pick up where we left off. But because Nadia had become 17, he said, as much as I want to help, I can't, I'm not allowed. So that was a bit of a wall that we hit at that stage.
Yeah, I have to say that has some resonance with our experiences 17 years previously, this big issue of transition.
Yeah.
Okay, so things were getting very difficult, and at the same time, your daughter lost access really with the services that she was using.
She lost access, but what Mike said to us was that, you know, because she is the age she is, she has to do what has to be done next. So he suggested she did a self-referral to Birmingham Healthy Minds, and that was something that was quite
just
hard.
By herself?
By herself. I couldn't do it for her, which I found quite frustrating.
She was an adult?
She's an adult, but she did that, and I was really proud of her. But she had 1 or 2 different counsellors. There was CBT. It just didn't work. It just didn't gel. I think it was more possibly an adult service, and it just didn't work for her at all.
Okay, so there you were, the family. Things had steadily got more difficult.
Yeah.
You'd got some experience of. I mean, you work within the health service.
I do.
And in your family, you'd got good help at a point, and then you hit this transition thing.
We did, and at this time, what was happening, unbeknown to any of us at home, was obviously we knew she was staying in her room more than she would have done, but she was lonely. She had lost a sister, lost a friend, never really made friends. We found out that she was self-harming, which was an incredible shock to what I would say was a happy, stable family. My world just felt like it was falling apart, really. She was turning 18. She was trying to test the boundaries. You know, when I'm 18, I can do this, I can leave home. Really, and feeling terrible low self-esteem, very low self-worth, and no matter how much people said to her, you know, you're doing really well at college, praise just went completely over her head. What was very worrying at this stage was she was spending a lot of time on the internet, and she was meeting virtual boys, for want of another word, who were saying she was beautiful, she was lovely, and she just took all that in, and it started heading sort of off in the wrong direction there.
So very vulnerable. And
very
so how,
vulnerable.
in terms of the family, what sort of impacts were you experiencing as a family?
It just felt like our world was falling apart. We just, you know, we're not the perfect family, but we're a close family, and we were just thinking, what have we done? How did this go wrong? I was feeling really angry because at this stage Nadia had given up going to college. She just couldn't do it anymore. But yet I couldn't tell everybody around me what exactly was going on, and they knew she was very good at it, so why was she leaving? I was drip feeding information to different people who I felt could take on board what was going on. I felt really sad. I felt like, who is she? We didn't know who she was anymore. I was absolutely exhausted. Last thing at night, that was all I thought about. I woke up in the morning, that was all I thought about. I spent both my husband and I spent more of our time thinking about her, to the sort of detriment of our other daughter. But our other daughter was very, very good, very supportive. But it was upsetting her a huge amount, and she was living away from home. It's
interesting that as families, we all react differently to these situations. I can remember in our family, I reacted in a very different way to my wife.
Yeah.
And I guess for my sons, I never really knew how they were feeling at that time. It was because we were so heads down. And so do you get that sense that as a family, you're reacting different ways to this sort of stress?
Absolutely. I guess why I'm here today is because I'm much more vocal. I wasn't ashamed to talk about what was going on. I did find that I wasn't, you know, sleeping, I wasn't eating. I enjoyed cooking. I wasn't doing cooking for the house. I was wondering from day to day what was going to, you know, happen next. Whereas my husband, he sort of bottled it up. He kept it quite private. Although we've always said to the girls, we don't compare you. You know, one did A-levels, one didn't. It didn't matter. They were different girls. But he kept saying, how did this happen to Nadia? And it never happened to my elder daughter. And I think he felt disappointed, really. My other daughter, as I said, she was really struggling to manage. She was away from home. She was very upset. She was very confused. Why hadn't Nadia told her what was going on? You know, why was she kind of last to find out, really, when she could have helped her?
So as a family, it was like heads down, just surviving, just coping.
Oh, day to day, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and in terms of some of the professionals then involved, can you reflect back on some of the things that made a difference in terms of the professionals?
Well, what happened, I think possibly I need just to step back a bit and just say that after Birmingham Healthy Minds, when that didn't work, Nadia took herself, yet again, she had to do this herself, to her GP.
Yeah.
I think the good thing is that Nadia didn't like what she was becoming. I think she wanted to sort this out, really. So that was a good thing.
So
I didn't
she was
have to
going
drag her along.
Yeah.
And we had a very, very good GP. And with Nadia, it's very important to gel with the person. So she gelled with this GP, and the GP referred her to Youth Space, which is something, although I work in a GP's practice in Birmingham, it wasn't a service that we had access to, so I knew nothing about it. And she went there, and it took 1 or 2 CPNs who I think were at different levels, who eventually, she got the right one, who seemed to know exactly sort of how to manage Nadia. And the main message she said to Nadia, which strikes me, and Nadia still talks about it, was that, Nadia, I'm going to give you, I can't do this for you, but I'm going to give you the tools to help you help yourself. And she'll still refer back to that to this day, really. But it wasn't a straightforward road, and things didn't get better straight away. We saw a psychiatrist who suggested, the CPN referred her to a psychiatrist who suggested she should try a course of antidepressants. And they didn't work. They didn't make any difference at all, to be honest. And it was at that point that the psychiatrist, they asked to see me with Nadia and suggested that we might want to try family therapy, which I'd never heard of.
No, I don't think when we were experiencing things, I don't think anyone had heard of it then either. So that sounds very different to 17 years before. So family therapy, do you want to say a little bit about your experiences there?
I think the first thing to say, it was just amazing. I feel incredibly lucky that we were offered this service. It involved all of us, and difficult as it can be for a single-handed GP to get to these things. It happened to be on a Wednesday afternoon, which was his half day, and it was just brilliant. Both my husband and I went to all of the sessions, and my daughter came from Manchester University to, I think, 3 sessions, which was really, really good. In fact, they said it's very unusual for siblings to come to these things.
So she actually travelled from Manchester?
She travelled, yeah, she travelled.
That's how important it was.
Wednesday's a good day. It's a half day at university as well, so it just happened to be a very good day for all of us, really. It showed us, they did a lot of role play, and it showed us things from different perspectives. They reacted things so Nadia could see how perhaps we were coping, and we could see Nadia's frustrations. There were 2 of them, which I think was really good. When one was doing all the talking, the other was doing the listening and making notes. And I think what struck me as well is the making notes from week to week meant that we didn't have to go back over everything each time. I'd never experienced anything like this before. They remembered the names of people that were important to Nadia, and I think that made her feel very valued. One thing that they did talk about from time to time was they'd say to Nadia, well, I know another family where a similar thing happened, and I'm never sure if that was real or not, but it seemed to make it seemed
the
quite...
narrative worked.
The narrative worked, really. Yeah.
Okay. So in your experience, and with those sort of thoughts in mind, how important do you think it was to involve the whole family?
Oh, incredibly important. I think, particularly maybe for Nadia, because her dad's quite quiet, just knowing that he, came to every one of those, and he started to open up. I think it was the vehicle, really, for us and Nadia to be able to talk to each other, because although we're a close family, this was just something that she did not want to talk about. In fact, the day when she made the decision that she had to leave college, because she was actually quite worried about what she was thinking of doing to herself at one stage, she said, I've got to write it to you in a letter. My friends have said I need to talk to you about it. My CPN said I need to talk to you, but I can't. I need to write it down. So family therapy became the vehicle where she felt safe and comfortable to talk to us, and we were able to talk to her.
Right.
So.
And sort of, were there any, looking back now, can you think about any sort of really key points? It's almost like turning points
in this whole process.
Yeah.
I mean, during this whole business of going to family therapy, Nadia had turned 18. She had, I wouldn't say left home permanently, but she'd gone, not telling us where she was going. At one stage, she was in London. But we were in the middle of family therapy, and she was sort of away from home for a couple of days. We didn't know where she was. But she actually took a train and came all the way back to family therapy. So I think that was
So
amazing.
you knew something was different.
I knew something was different.
Yeah.
And we were learning throughout family therapy that we have to respect the fact that she wants to be treated like an adult. And one of the models they gave us was, all of us, that if you want to be treated like an adult, you need to behave like one.
So it's a turning point for you as well, as the whole family reacted behaved differently.
I feel I've got new skills in dealing with probably both my girls really now that I never had before. So it was a learning thing for all of us.
Okay, and How's Nadia now?
She's so much happier in herself. When all this frustration was going on, she wanted to leave Birmingham, get away from Birmingham, and we were looking at perhaps a dance course in Oxford.
Right.
But just at the point of signing the Halls of Residence agreement for Oxford, she decided, I don't think I want to go that far. I kind of like home, but I want my independence. And she made the decision to go back to the same college that she was studying cookery, but to do a completely different course. And that really took some bravery, I think. So she's now doing a course in theatrical special effects, hair and makeup. She's creative, she's moved out of home, she's living in halls of residence. They happen to be directly across the road from the surgery where I work, but that's coincidence rather than anything else.
So that's quite a shift.
It's quite a shift. I think she wanted to be independent, but because everything's much better between us all, I think knowing that we were there, you know, it was just a sort of stable thing for her. And it's trying to get the balance now of letting her get on with it and keeping the distance, but keeping in touch, really. And she's managed to get herself a part-time job, sort of promoting nightclubs for, you know, like students do. So she's done really, really well.
So normal.
I'm very proud of her. Yeah.
And how's the family?
We're so much better. We feel much, much better, much more, I suppose, empowered and enabled to deal with, you know, what might still come ahead. Because I'm sure there will still be things that happen with any student who starts a new job. Something I picked up yesterday from one of the speakers was that university students, when they graduate, it's not always easy to get a job. And I phoned my eldest daughter yesterday, and one of the messages I got from listening to yesterday was keep the doors open. You know, it's great to get a university education, but life isn't an easy path. So I feel I've got skills now to help her get through.
So this is a learning process for you.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, I think you've been incredibly brave to do this, so I'm really very grateful for that. I guess we'll just wrap up, and we ought to have a key, you know, there's an opportunity for you to give a key message to this conference about what you feel as a family member is important. So do you want to just say something on that?
I think it's really important that families should be part of I call it maybe the healing process, and not just when professionals discharge your child from care, but while you're going through the whole process. And I often say to one of my friends, you know, parenthood doesn't come with a manual. You know, we do need help to get us through how to, you know, guide our children, and I think it's so important that families should be involved.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good point to finish this, Danielle. So,
Okay,
thank you very much indeed. Thank you for listening.